The first sign that something unusual was happening came on a Tuesday morning. Adam Clark was reviewing bacterial samples in his lab when every screen in the building suddenly switched to an emergency broadcast. The President of the United States appeared, looking both excited and concerned. "My fellow Americans," she said, "I come to you with news that will forever change our understanding of our place in the universe. 90 minutes ago, a fleet of spacecraft entered our solar system and established orbit around Mars. They have identified themselves as representatives of something called the Galactic Conclave, a coalition of intelligent species. After decades of wondering if we are alone, we finally have our answer." Adam's coffee mug slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. No one noticed. Every person in the xenobiology department stood frozen, eyes locked on the screens. 3 days later, Adam found himself on a military transport heading to the newly established meeting point in neutral orbit between Earth and Mars. As one of Earth's leading experts on theoretical alien biology, his presence had been specifically requested. "Dr. Clark, we're approaching the rendezvous point," the pilot announced. "You might want to see this." Adam floated to the cockpit viewport and felt his breath catch. The alien ship was beautiful, a spiraling structure that seemed to be made of flowing metal and crystal, catching the sunlight in ways that made it appear to be made of liquid gold. "It's amazing," he whispered. "It's terrifying," corrected Admiral Susan Wright, the mission commander. She was a tall woman with gray-streaked black hair and the kind of face that never seemed to show fear. "Nothing that advanced comes in peace. Without a reason." The human delegation was welcomed aboard the conclave vessel with elaborate ceremony. Representatives from 27 different species greeted them in a vast chamber that somehow adjusted its environment in each section to match the needs of its occupants. Adam was assigned to the scientific exchange team, while Admiral Wright led the diplomatic corps. For the first few weeks, everything proceeded better than anyone had dared hope. The aliens shared knowledge freely, helped humanity establish faster communication systems, and explained the basic structure of galactic society. But Adam began noticing something strange. Many of the alien scientists would ask him odd questions about Earth's predators and humanity's evolutionary history. At first, he thought it was just scientific curiosity. "So, your species never had a natural predator that hunted you specifically?" asked Vervel, a blue-skinned alien with 4 arms and eyes that blinked sideways. "Well, early hominids certainly did," Adam explained. "Big cats, wolves, bears. But we developed tools and social structures that helped us survive." "Yet you did not evolve specific defensive adaptations," Kervil persisted. "No poison glands, no protective shells, no specialized fleeing mechanisms." "No, we became the predators instead," Adam said with a slight laugh. "We turned the tables." Kervil didn't laugh. In fact, Adam realized he had never seen any of the aliens laugh. After 6 weeks of these increasingly uncomfortable exchanges, Adam was invited to a meeting with the Conclave Science Directorate. The room was filled with alien dignitaries, but his attention was immediately drawn to the Zithari representative. Unlike the other aliens who at least attempted to appear friendly, the Zithari made no such effort. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, with a chitinous exoskeleton and razor-sharp forelimbs that resembled those of a praying mantis, High Commander Vrex dominated the room with his presence. "Dr. Clark," Vrex began, his translator conveying his words in a cold, metallic tone, "we have reviewed your species' biological history with great interest. We find it troubling." "Troubling?" Adam asked. "In what way?" "Your kind represents an evolutionary path that should not exist," Vrex said bluntly. "All intelligent species follow predictable patterns. Predator species evolve from apex hunters, developing intelligence to become more efficient killers. Prey species evolve intelligence to avoid being killed, developing complex social structures and warning systems." Another alien, a small rodent-like creature named Elpos, continued. But humans followed neither path. You began as prey, yet instead of specializing, you generalized. You became endurance hunters without losing prey instincts. You maintained fear responses that enhance rather than inhibit performance. It is unprecedented. Adam felt suddenly cold. I'm not sure I understand the concern. Evolution takes many paths. Not in our experience. Vrex clicked his mandibles together in what Adam was learning to recognize as irritation. The conclave has existed for 12,000 of your years. We have catalogued over 300 intelligent species. None have followed your evolutionary path. Later that day, Adam sought out Dr. Olivia Martinez, the mission's anthropologist. He found her in the ship's archive room, her face pale as she stared at a data screen. "Olivia, I need to talk to you about something strange that happened today," he began. "They're afraid of us," she interrupted, not looking away from her screen. "I've been granted limited access to their historical records. There have been other species, Adam, not exactly like us, but similar. Species that evolved without specific predator-prey adaptations. What happened to them?" Adam asked, though something in her expression told him he wouldn't like the answer. They were classified as unstable threats and subjected to something called containment protocols. The records are vague, but I think... She finally looked up at him, her eyes wide. "I think they were wiped out." That evening, a reception was held to celebrate the successful first month of human-conclave relations. Admiral Wright was engaged in conversation with the conclave's diplomatic representative when a small insect-like alien lost control of its hovering tray. The tray crashed down directly behind the Admiral. Most people would have jumped or flinched. Admiral Wright did neither. In one smooth motion, she pivoted, assessed the situation, and helped steady the flustered server. "No harm done," she said, pleasantly, turning back to continue her conversation. But Adam, watching from across the room, saw the reaction of the alien diplomats. They had gone completely still, their attention locked on the Admiral with an intensity that seemed almost like fear. Later that night, Adam couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the Zethari's words about the missing species in the historical records, about the strange reaction to the Admiral's response to being startled. His personal communication device chimed. It was a message from Admiral Wright. "Dr. Clark, please report to Conference Room B immediately. Bring Dr. Martinez." When they arrived, they found the Admiral with Lieutenant Lisa Johnson, the mission's security chief. The women's expressions were grim. "We have a problem," Admiral Wright said without preamble. "I've just received word from Earth. The conclave has requested permission to conduct a comprehensive biological and psychological study of humanity before proceeding with formal diplomatic relations." "That doesn't sound so bad," Adam said, cautiously. "They specifically want to study our response to threat stimuli," Lieutenant Johnson said. "And they've requested access to our military training facilities." Dr. Martinez's hand went to her mouth. "Just like the records I found, this is how it started with the others." Admiral Wright nodded. "I believe we're being assessed as a potential threat. And based on what you've both reported, they've already decided what they think of us." She looked each of them in the eye. "The question is, what are we going to do about it?" Outside the viewport, Earth glowed blue and peaceful, unaware that its first contact with alien life might soon become its greatest threat. 6 months had passed since first contact, and Earth had changed. Alien technology appeared in stores. People looked up at the night sky with new wonder and fear. And on the edge of Jupiter's orbit, the massive research station called Harmonic stood as a symbol of cooperation, or so the public was told. Dr. Paul Foster walked through the station's curved hallways, nodding at the mix of human and alien researchers he passed. As the leading human psychologist on the project, he had been chosen to oversee what the conclave called compatibility studies. What had started as basic medical examinations had slowly transformed into something more concerning. "Dr. Foster." "You're late," said Carville, the blue-skinned alien scientist who served as his counterpart. "Today's stress response tests are already prepared." Paul sighed. "I reviewed the testing protocols last night. They're too extreme. I can't approve putting human subjects through simulated death scenarios." "We've been over this," Carville's for. Arms moved in different directions, a sign of irritation. "We must understand how humans react under maximum duress. It is for everyone's safety?" By traumatizing volunteers? Paul asked. The subjects will not remember. The memory suppression technology is perfectly safe. Paul wanted to argue further, but he knew it would do no good. Instead, he changed tactics. At least let me participate in this round. I should experience what we're putting them through. Curvel's sideways, blinking eyes studied him. That would be ... regular, but perhaps valuable. Very well. An hour later, Paul found himself in a testing chamber designed to look like an ordinary office. 5 other humans, all volunteers from various scientific and military backgrounds, sat at desks around him. Lieutenant Lisa Johnson, the military liaison assigned to the research team, gave him a questioning look from across the room. Paul nodded slightly, hoping she understood he was there to monitor the situation. Today's scenario is simple, came Curvel's voice over the speaker. Please complete the tasks on your tablets. We will introduce environmental variables periodically. Paul picked up his tablet and began the puzzles displayed there. Simple pattern recognition at first, then increasingly complex problems. 20 minutes passed uneventfully. Then the lights flickered. The room temperature dropped suddenly. Paul's breath became visible in the cold air. Minor environmental system malfunction, announced the calm voice. Please continue your work. The temperature continued to drop. Paul saw the others pulling their lab coats tighter, but no one stopped working. Interesting, he thought. In most prey species, cold would trigger energy conservation. They would stop all unnecessary activity. A warning alarm blared, startling everyone. Containment breach in adjacent laboratory, the announcement said. Toxic gas detected. Shelter in place and await rescue. Paul noticed thin green vapor seeping through the ventilation system. He knew it was probably harmless. The conclave wouldn't actually poison them, but the fear response was real. His heart rate increased. His focus sharpened. He glanced around the room. The others had noticed the gas too. Instead of panic, he saw calculation in their eyes. Lieutenant Johnson was already moving, using her tablet to try accessing the room's systems. Another researcher, Dr. Alan Moore, had pulled off his lab coat and was stuffing it into the vent. Paul realized he hadn't stopped solving the puzzles. Neither had anyone else. They were working, thinking, and planning simultaneously. From the observation room, Curvel watched with the other alien researchers. Note how they do not freeze or flee, he said. Even believing they face death, they problem-solve and cooperate without verbal communication. High Commander Vrex clicked his mandibles. Just as the previous tests showed, increase the pressure. Loud bangs shook the room, and one wall partially collapsed. One of the human subjects was struck by debris and fell, bleeding from a cut on his forehead. Medical emergency and testing chamber, the system announced. Paul rushed to the injured man. Lieutenant Johnson appeared at his side with a first aid kit that she'd somehow located. As Paul treated the wound, he realized something. None of the humans had broken down. There was no panic, no fighting, no freezing in terror. There was only focused, efficient response to the crisis. The test ended 30 minutes later. The toxic gas dissipated and repair drones fixed the damaged wall-all simulations, though extremely convincing ones. As the subjects were escorted out for medical evaluation and memory suppression, Paul slipped away, having convinced Curvel that as an observer he should retain his memories. Later that night, Paul met secretly with Lieutenant Johnson in the station's arboretum, where the dense foliage would help hide their conversation from surveillance. You didn't get the memory wipe? She asked. No, I needed to remember what they're doing, Paul replied. These tests go beyond scientific inquiry. They're testing our weaknesses, Lisa nodded. I've been suspicious for weeks. I managed to copy some of their internal communications. She showed him her tablet. They keep using this phrase containment assessment. Paul felt cold. That had nothing to do with the simulated emergency from earlier. We need to warn Admiral Wright. Already working on it, Lisa said. But there's more. I've been watching the test designs. They're specifically looking at our response to situations that would cause other species to freeze or flee. And they seem disturbed by the results. Because we don't react the way they expect, Paul said. When humans are frightened, we become more focused, more capable. It's why we've survived despite not having claws or armor or poison. They're afraid of us, Lisa said simply. Yes, and I'm becoming afraid of them. On Earth, far from the harmonic research station, Eric Williams sat in his apartment surrounded by screens. As a civilian programmer contracted to analyze the data streams coming from the station, he had noticed patterns that bothered him. The tests being conducted on human subjects weren't random. There was an escalation, a methodology that seemed designed to identify breaking points. Eric had developed an algorithm to predict what the aliens were looking for. The results disturbed him enough that he'd reached out to his government contact. His secure communication terminal chimed. Admiral Wright's face appeared on the screen. Mr. Williams, I've reviewed your analysis, she said without greeting. Are you certain of these conclusions? Yes, Admiral. They're not just studying us. The test patterns suggest they're looking for exploitable weaknesses, ways to neutralize us quickly if necessary. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Have you shared this with anyone else? No, ma'am. Just you, as instructed. Good, keep it that way. She leaned closer to the camera. Mr. Williams, I need you to continue your analysis, but through secure channels only. I'm sending you encryption protocols. We've suspected something like this, but your data provides the confirmation we needed. What are you going to do? Eric asked. Admiral Wright's expression was grim. Prepare quietly and hope we're wrong. After the call ended, Eric stared at his screens. The beautiful spiral arms of the conclave diplomatic vessel orbiting Earth no longer seemed quite so beautiful, back on the harmonic station. Hi, Commander. Vrex reviewed the day's test results with the Science Directorate. The evidence continues to support our hypothesis, he said. Humans do not respond to threats like prey species should. They do not panic appropriately. But perhaps we are approaching this incorrectly, suggested Elpos, the rodent-like scientist. Perhaps humans are simply predators who lost their physical advantages. No, Vrex's voice was cold. Predator species show different responses. Humans show the heightened awareness of prey, but channel it into aggression and problem-solving rather than escape. It is unnatural, dangerous. What do you recommend? Asked another council member. Vrex's compound eyes reflected the light coldly. We must move to the next phase of testing. The humans believe the harmonic station is merely a research outpost. It is time they learned its true purpose. And that is? Asked Elpos. A containment evaluation facility, Vrex said. If humans pass, they join the conclave. If they fail, his mandibles clicked together in what might have been satisfaction. Then the containment protocols are already in place. The attack came without warning. Admiral Susan Wright was in the middle of a diplomatic meeting on Nexus Prime, the neutral world that served as the conclave headquarters when the explosion rocked the building, alarms blared. Security barriers slammed down. What's happening? Demanded the Earth ambassador, a balding man named Frank Cooper. Susan didn't waste time answering. She was already moving, pulling her emergency communicator from her pocket. Write to all Earth personnel. Code Black. Repeat code Black. Rally at emergency point Delta. The ambassador looked confused, but Susan grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the exit. The meeting was a trap. We need to move. Now, through the smoke-filled corridors they ran. Twice they encountered Conclave security forces, not the usual peacekeepers, but Zithari combat units in full battle armor. Susan fired her concealed weapon without hesitation, dropping the aliens before they could react. You killed them, the ambassador gasped. They would have killed us, Susan replied coldly. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's an attack. When they reached the emergency rendezvous point, a maintenance bay near the human embassy's private shuttle, they found 30 other humans waiting. Lieutenant Maria Ruiz, Susan's security chief on Nexus Prime, approached with a grim expression. How bad? Susan asked. Very bad, Admiral. The Zithari are leading some kind of purge. They're calling it a containment protocol, most of our people. made it here, but we've lost contact with Dr. Martinez and her research team. They were in the Conclave archives when communications went down. Susan's jaw tightened. The archives are on the other side of the complex. We can't reach them without fighting through the entire Zithari force. We can't just leave them, the ambassador protested. We won't, Susan assured him. But first, we need to warn Earth. She turned to Lieutenant Ruiz. Get everyone on the shuttle. I'll transmit the alert. As the others boarded, Susan connected her emergency communicator to the embassy's quantum relay. The message was simple. Betrayal, Conclave hostile. Prepare for war. Just as she finished the transmission, the doors to the maintenance bay exploded inward. Zithari soldiers poured through the opening, their chitinous armor gleaming, their weapons raised. Go! Susan shouted to the shuttle pilot. She fired her weapon, providing cover as the shuttle's engines roared to life. The Zithari commander stepped forward, mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement. Admiral Wright, how predictable. Did you really think we wouldn't monitor your emergency protocols? No, Susan replied calmly. I counted on it. The shuttle suddenly rotated, its cargo bay doors opening to reveal not frightened diplomats, but a squad of human marines with heavy weapons. They opened fire, catching the Zithari in a devastating crossfire. In the chaos, Susan sprinted for the shuttle. As she leapt aboard, she caught a glimpse of the Zithari commander's compound eyes, and saw something she recognized instantly. Fear. The shuttle blasted out of the maintenance bay, accelerating hard toward orbit. Behind them, the human embassy erupted in a series of controlled explosions, the self-destruct protocol erasing all sensitive data. How many did we lose? Susan asked Lieutenant Ruiz once they were safely away from the planet. At least 20. Confirmed dead. Maybe 50 more unaccounted for, including Dr. Martinez's team. Ruiz hesitated. Admiral, we're getting reports from across Conclave space. This wasn't isolated to Nexus Prime. Human ships and stations everywhere are under attack. Susan closed her eyes briefly. And Earth? The lunar outpost has gone dark. Orbital platforms are reporting Conclave warships entering the system. The ambassador pushed his way forward. This is insanity. We need to contact the Conclave leadership, demand an explanation. The explanation is simple, Susan cut him off. They've decided we're a threat and are trying to eliminate us before we become a bigger one. She turned to the communications. Officer, any response from Earth to my warning? Yes, Admiral, General Defense Protocol is active. All nations are mobilizing. On Earth, chaos reigned. The first attack had destroyed the lunar outpost in a single, devastating strike. Orbital defense platforms followed, blasted apart by weapons far beyond human technology. But when the alien ships entered atmosphere, they encountered something unexpected: resistance. Despite the technological gap, Earth's military forces had not been idle during the months of apparent peace. Weapons had been modified based on observed alien technology. Defense systems had been hardened against expected attack vectors. In his underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Alan Barnes watched the tactical displays with grim determination. The first wave of alien ground forces had landed near major cities, clearly expecting to find panic and disorganization. Instead, they found humanity united as never before. Old enemies fought side by side. Civilian volunteers transported supplies and evacuated the vulnerable. Everyone contributed to the defense. Sir, his aide reported, we're getting strange readings from the enemy dropships in Sector 7. Barnes studied the display. They're pulling back. Already? He frowned. They expected us to break and run at the first attack. They didn't plan for a sustained ground campaign. That buys us time, sir. But with our orbital defenses gone ... Barnes nodded grimly. They can bombard us from orbit if they choose, so why aren't they? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Olivia Martinez, believed lost on Nexus Prime, had managed to establish communication using a hidden Conclave terminal. Her face appeared on the command center's main screen, dirty and bloodied but very much alive. General Barnes, I don't have much time, she said urgently. I'm with a small group of survivors in the archives. We've discovered why the Conclave attacked. We know why, Doctor. They think we're a threat. No, it's more specific than that. Olivia's eyes were wide with the urgency of her discovery. We were wrong about our evolutionary history. Humans aren't prey species that evolved without predators. According to the Conclave's own historical records, we're what happens when a prey species becomes the predator. Barnes leaned forward, explain. Most prey species evolve specific adaptations: speed, camouflage, defensive weapons. Most predator species evolve specialized hunting adaptations. But occasionally, a prey species develops intelligence as its primary adaptation. Instead of becoming faster or stronger, it learns to make tools, to cooperate, to plan, and that's what happened to us? Yes, but here's the crucial part. The Conclave has encountered this development path before. They call such species ascendant threats because once they reach a certain technological threshold, they expand rapidly. They adapt faster than specialized species. They're more innovative, more aggressive, more determined. The general's expression darkened. And what happened to these other species? Olivia's face was grim. The Conclave destroyed them. Every single one. In their 12,000-year history, they've enacted containment protocols against 17 different species with similar evolutionary paths to humans. So they're trying to eliminate us before we become too powerful to contain, Barnes concluded. Exactly. But there's something else, something that has them truly terrified. Olivia looked over her shoulder, then back at the camera. Unlike those other species, humans already had a global civilization before contact. We're already united. And worst of all, from their perspective, we've spent our entire history fighting each other. We're better at war than any species they've encountered. The transmission suddenly became garbled. They're detecting the signal, Olivia said urgently. One last thing, they won't bombard Earth from orbit because they want our planet intact. The Zifari are calling Earth a prize world. The transmission cut off abruptly. General Barnes stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then he turned to his staff, his expression resolute. Send this information to all command centers worldwide. The aliens expect us to behave like prey, to be shocked by their technological superiority, to lose hope, to surrender. He stood straighter, his voice firm with conviction. Let's show them how wrong they are. 3 years into what became known as the Containment War, Earth was a changed world. Major cities lay in ruins. The skies, once filled with satellites and aircraft, now belonged to alien patrol ships. From orbit, the planet appeared wounded, with vast scars visible where the heaviest fighting had occurred. But Earth was not defeated. Captain Greg Russell crouched in the snow, his white camouflage making him nearly invisible against the Rocky Mountain backdrop. Through his binoculars, he watched the alien supply convoy moving through the valley below. 6 transport vehicles, 2 guard ships, and about 20 Zithari soldiers on foot. Too many for a direct attack, whispered Sam Hayes, his second in command. The young woman had been a college student when the war began. Now she was one of his best fighters, Greg nodded. We'll use the avalanche trap. He keyed his radio, using the short-range frequency that the aliens had trouble detecting. All units move to position 2, avalanche protocol. His team of 30 resistance fighters moved silently through the trees. They had trained for months in these mountains, learning every ridge and valley. The aliens, despite their advanced technology, had never adapted to Earth's varied terrain and harsh weather conditions. When the convoy reached the narrowest part of the valley, Greg gave the signal. Hidden charges exploded on the mountain slopes. Above, tons of snow crashed down, burying the rear vehicles and cutting off escape. Before the aliens could react, precision rifle fire took out the guard ship's engines. The aliens responded with surprising speed, forming a defensive circle around the remaining transports. Their weapons energy rifles that could punch through steel fired wildly into the surrounding forest. They still don't understand, Sam said quietly. They keep expecting us to charge them directly. Greg smiled grimly. Because that's what predators do in their experience. They attack head-on. He keyed his radio again. Phase 2? From hidden positions throughout the valley, his team began sniping at the aliens, one shot, then move. Another shot from a different position, then move again. The aliens fired back at empty forest. As night fell, temperatures dropped well below freezing. The Zithari, evolved on a warmer world, began to slow. Their chitinous exoskeletons grew brittle in the extreme cold. Now, Greg ordered. His team moved in silently, taking out the struggling aliens with minimal gunfire. 20 minutes later, the convoy was theirs. Check the cargo, Greg ordered as his people secured the area. Medical supplies are priority. One, then weapons, then food? Sam returned a few minutes later, her expression puzzled. You need to see this, Captain. Inside the lead transport, instead of supplies, they found rows of stasis pods. Inside each pod was a human child. Prisoners? Greg asked, horrified. Sam checked the control panel. No. Test subjects. According to these files, they're taking human children for study, trying to understand how we develop. Greg felt cold fury rising within him. Download everything. Then prepare these pods for transport back to base. And he looked at her steadily. No one gets left behind, not anymore. On the other side of the world, in what had once been Singapore, Lavra Bennett led a very different kind of resistance. As a former corporate negotiator, her weapons were words and information rather than guns. The alien occupation force here was not Zithari but prevalent tall, thin beings with 4 eyes and skin that changed color with their emotions. The Prevlat were administrators rather than warriors, tasked with managing the human population in what they called Productivity Zone 7. Lavra stood before the alien district commander, her posture respectful but not subservient. The workers in Sector 12 cannot meet the new quotas, she explained. The protein rations you've allocated are insufficient for heavy labor. Commander Neris's skin flickered between orange irritation and blue calculation. Your species requires too much nutrition. It is inefficient. Perhaps, Lavra agreed mildly. But hungry humans cannot work effectively. Production will fall further if the situation isn't addressed. The commander stared at her with all 4 eyes. You always advocate for your people, Liaison Bennett. Yet you never threaten or demand? Why? Lavra maintained her professional smile. Because cooperation benefits us both. I help you meet your production targets and you help my people survive. What she didn't say was that every concession she won, every extra ration, every relaxed curfew, every medical supply strengthened the underground network she had built throughout the occupation zone. Food meant strength. Medicine meant health. Small freedoms meant opportunities to communicate, to organize, to resist. I will increase protein allocation by 7%, the commander finally decided. But I expect an 8% increase in production. Thank you, Commander. I'm certain that will be sufficient. Later, in the hidden room beneath the workers' quarters, Lavra met with her core team. The extra rations begin tomorrow, she told them. Divert 20% to the resistance cells in Sectors 9 and 13. Her communications specialist, Ryan Dixon, looked up from his jury-rigged computer terminal. I've decoded more of their transmissions. The news isn't good. The Conclave is bringing in specialized hunter-killer units to deal with the guerrilla forces in North America and Eastern Europe. They're getting desperate, observed Wei Lin, a former physics teacher, who now led their technology recovery team. 3 years ago, they thought this would be over in weeks. Lavra nodded. They still don't understand what they're fighting against. She turned to the crude map on the wall, showing known resistance zones worldwide. Any word from Dr. Foster's research group in Antarctica? Ryan nodded. They've made a breakthrough. They've been reverse engineering captured alien tech, focusing on their neural interfaces, and they've discovered something interesting. The reason the aliens rely so heavily on specialized roles warriors, administrators, scientists, is because their brains are hardwired that way. They literally cannot think outside their designated function. Lavra felt a chill of realization. While humans can adapt to almost any role, Ryan finished. We're not as good at specialization, but we're infinitely better at Generalization. Wei Lin laughed softly. So when they kill our warriors, we make new ones from teachers and farmers. When they kill our scientists, we train new ones from soldiers and laborers. Exactly, Ryan said. They can't understand our flexibility because they don't have it. Lavra stared at the map, thinking of resistance cells across the planet, each finding their own ways to fight back. Tell Dr. Foster's team to focus on communication. Systems next. If we can link these scattered resistance groups. She didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone in the room understood what it would mean. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Susan Wright stood on the bridge of the EAS Defiance, Earth's last functioning military spacecraft. The ship was a hybrid of salvaged human technology and captured alien systems, hidden for the past year in the shadow of Saturn while its systems were upgraded. Status report, she ordered. Her executive officer, Commander Joe Garcia, handed her a tablet. The stealth systems are functioning at 97% efficiency. The aliens shouldn't detect us unless we get within 10,000 kilometers. Susan studied the tactical display. A dozen Conclave warships orbited Earth, maintaining the blockade that had isolated humanity from the rest of the galaxy. What about the ground teams? She asked. Operation Long Hunt is proceeding exactly as you planned, Admiral. Resistance forces worldwide are using hit-and-run tactics, just as you instructed. The aliens are spreading their forces thinner and thinner trying to respond. Susan nodded in satisfaction. 3 years ago, facing overwhelming technological superiority, she had developed a strategy based on humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage, endurance. The Zithithari evolved as ambush predators, she had told Earth's remaining military leaders. They expect quick, decisive victories. They're not built for long campaigns. Now, after 3 years of grinding attrition, the first cracks were appearing in the Conclave's containment effort. Some of the coalition species were questioning the war's cost. Others were concerned by humanity's unexpected resilience. Send the signal to General Barnes, Susan ordered. Tell him it's time for Phase 2. As Commander Garcia transmitted the coded message, Susan stared at the blue-green planet below. The aliens had sought to contain humanity before it could spread. To the stars, they were about to discover that it was already too late. The turning point of the war began with a simple fact. The aliens had never expected to fight for 5 years. They had come prepared for a quick victory, not a prolonged struggle against an enemy that refused to surrender. Kevin Morris had been an environmental engineer before the war. He had designed clean energy systems and believed in peace. Now he stood in a hidden laboratory beneath the Amazon rainforest, surrounded by salvaged alien technology. Try it again, he told his team of scientists and engineers. People who, like him, had adapted to new roles demanded by survival. The experimental drive core hummed to life, its blue glow illuminating the tired faces around it. 5 years of study, of trial and error, of learning alien science through captured data and equipment had led to this moment. Power level stable, reported Diane Rogers, a former high school physics teacher. The fusion reaction is self-sustaining. Kevin allowed himself a small smile. Now for the real test. He activated the communication system. Morris to Admiral. Right, the package is ready for delivery. 2 days later, the new drive core was installed in the EAS Defiance. Admiral Susan Wright watched as her engineers made the final connections. Will it work? She asked Kevin directly. In theory, yes, he replied. We've combined their technology with our understanding of physics. The result is something new, a drive system that's more efficient than anything in the Conclave fleet. Susan nodded. Then it's time. Commander Garcia, prepare for Phase 3. The Defiance slipped out of its hiding place in Saturn's shadow and accelerated toward Earth faster than any human ship had moved before, faster even than the Conclave vessels. Maintaining the blockade on the bridge, Susan watched the tactical display as they approached the first enemy warship. They've detected us, Commander Garcia reported. They're powering weapons, evasive maneuvers, Susan ordered. Deploy countermeasures. The Defiance danced through space, moving with an agility that seemed impossible for its size. The alien. Weapons fire passed harmlessly through empty space where the ship had been moments before. "The new drive is working perfectly," Kevin said in amazement. "We're outmaneuvering them." Susan allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. "This is just the beginning. Target their command ship." The Defiance fired its main weapons hybrid systems that combined human missile technology with alien energy. Weapons. The Conclave command ship shields flared and failed under the unexpected assault. "All ships," Susan broadcast on the open channel that all Conclave vessels would receive. "This is Admiral Susan Wright of Earth. Your blockade is broken. Your containment has failed. Withdraw from Earth orbit or be destroyed." The Conclave ships responded by forming a battle formation, exactly as expected. Their training, their instincts, demanded they face the threat directly, but the Defiance didn't engage them. Instead, it danced around the formation, striking weak points and then vanishing again, drawing the alien fleet away from Earth while the space battle raged. Transport ships that had been hidden on the dark side of the moon made their move. Led by General Barnes, they slipped through the gap in the blockade, carrying Earth's best scientists, soldiers, and leaders. Their destination, the Zithari. Homeworld. Dr. Olivia Martinez had survived the initial attack on Nexus Prime years ago. Since then, she had gathered a network of alien allies species within the Conclave who questioned the war against humanity. Now she stood before representatives of 7 different Conclave species in a secret meeting chamber on a neutral trading station. "The Zithari have lied to you," she told them. "This war was never about containing a threat. It was about eliminating a potential rival before we could realize our full capabilities. You have evidence of this?" asked the Merivian representative. A tentacled being whose species specialized in justice and law. Olivia nodded and activated a data crystal. "These are records from the Conclave archives copied before the attack. They show that 17 previous containment actions were carried out against species that posed no actual threat. Species that simply evolved in ways the Zithari found disturbing." The representatives studied the data with expressions of growing concern. "The Zithari promised a quick victory," Olivia continued. 5 years later, the war continues, draining your resources and lives. And now they push for the use of forbidden weapons planet killers against Earth." "This is true," confirmed the Prevlat representative, skin shifting to the green hue of concern. "The High Command grows desperate." "Humans do not seek the destruction of any species," Olivia assured them. "Even now, we fight only to survive. If the Conclave withdraws from Earth and recognizes our independence, the war can end today." The representatives conferred among themselves. Finally, the Merivian spoke. "We will bring this evidence before the full Conclave assembly. The Zithari will face questions they cannot ignore." As the meeting concluded, the station's alarm suddenly blared. "Alert, unidentified vessels approaching. Alert." Olivia rushed to the observation deck with the representatives. Outside, a fleet of ships unlike any she had seen before had appeared. Not Conclave vessels, not Earth ships, but something new. "Those are human designs," she realized with shock. "But how did they build so many so quickly?" Her question was answered when Ambassador Melissa Turner contacted the station. "Dr. Martinez, I'm pleased to find you alive. We've come to negotiate the end of this conflict." Melissa explained how humanity had not merely been fighting a defensive war on Earth. General Barnes and the best minds of Earth had escaped the blockade and reached out to other species beyond the Conclave's borders. They had found allied civilizations that feared the Conclave's growing power or resented its interference. "We offer the Conclave a choice," Melissa told the gathered representatives. "Peace with humanity as equals or war with humanity and our new allies." The final battle took place not over Earth, but in the Zithari home system. Admiral Wright's Defiance led a fleet of Earth ships and allied vessels against the remains of the Conclave Armada. High Commander Vrex watched in disbelief, as his forces were systematically defeated by the human tactics. The Zithari fought as they always had, with overwhelming force and direct attacks. The humans fought differently, adapting, improvising, finding weaknesses, and exploiting them mercilessly. When the Defiance finally confronted Vrex's flagship, the High Commander expected to die. Instead, Admiral Wright offered terms: unconditional withdrawal from Earth and human space, recognition of humanity as a sovereign power, reparations for the damage caused. In exchange, we spare your homeworld and help rebuild the Conclave as an organization of genuine equals. Vrex's mandibles clicked in what might have been bitter amusement. You offer mercy when you could destroy us. Why? Susan's expression remained neutral. Because we're not what you feared we were. We don't seek to dominate or destroy. We seek to survive, to grow, to explore. Yes, we fight fiercely when threatened, but we prefer peace when possible. 1 year later, representatives from Earth stood in the newly reformed Conclave Council chamber. The old hierarchy had been dismantled. The 17 species previously contained had been acknowledged and memorialized. Admiral Wright, now Earth's ambassador to the galaxy, addressed the assembly. The war is over. Now we must build something better together. The Conclave feared humanity because we evolved differently, because we were adaptable rather than specialized, because when threatened we became more dangerous, not less. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes or eye equivalents of dozens of different species. But our greatest strength was never our ability to fight. It was our ability to cooperate, to learn, to change. The galaxy questioned humanity's evolution and regretted it, not because we punished that questioning with violence, but because the answer revealed a truth. Diversity of thought and adaptation creates resilience. She extended her hand in the universal gesture of peace. Let that be the foundation of our new beginning.